Coming up.
This garden here is our bog garden.
After a trip to this hospital courtyard, a walk in the woods won't ever be the same again.
This one I think is really special. Some people even call it native medicine because it's so powerful.
Discover plants as medicine and as food.
So you can pickle it, you can freeze it.
All the things you can do with this wild cousin of rhubarb.
The trick is to get that nice and whipped up.
Ahead, Alaska plants from sourdock to stinkweed.
Alaska, where there are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief that the best is yet to come, bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to Frontiers. At the Alaska Native Medical Center in Anchorage, you'll find a small urban oasis in the hospital courtyard, an escape in the summer for patients and their families, but also a place where you'll find a garden that's not just any garden. Many of the patients who come to this hospital live hundreds of miles from Anchorage, from communities with different foods and different cultures.
Here's some Tundra tea.
Oh, I love that Tundra tea. But chances are, no matter where you're from, you can find something here to make you feel at home and feel better. Amy Foote oversees the food here at the hospital.
It's a big chunk for you.
And this is such a beautiful fresh leaf. Chef Amy is after the sourdock, which looks like spinach, but is a cousin to rhubarb. Boy, it has almost a citrusy, acidic kick to it.
Mm-hmm. Little bite at the end.
Chef Amy likes to incorporate as much wild food into the hospital menu as possible.
You can use the stalk on it, so the stalk is also edible.
Alaska natives like to use sourdock in soups.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
But today, Chef Amy has other plans for these leaves and berries, harvested at the peak of ripeness.
Currants are really nice. They have a little tartness to them. These are really beautiful. They're going to be high in vitamin C. And if they get through a frost, then they turn to sugar. So then they're sweet too.
So what plans does Chef Amy have for the currants and sourdock?
There we go.
Well, you'll find ingredients here used in just about any kitchen anywhere. There are a few that are unique to this hospital.
The seal fat that I rendered this morning on ice.
Fat from harbor seal donated from a Ketchikan hunter.
See, it melts even in my hand. It's the neatest fat.
Rich in omega-3 fatty acids, known to reduce inflammation and the risk of heart disease. So what do we have here? Ingredients for the ultimate native soul food, akutaq, also known as Eskimo ice cream.
To do a light blanch on this, it changes the texture, changes the flavor, but it still has that sour, right? That bite is still there.
A hint of citrus in the mixture. Next, she combines the seal fat with vegetable shortening. Some use caribou fat and add fish for flavor.
It gets light and it gets fluffy.
Family recipes that are all a variation on a theme of sugar, fat, and berries.
Right now we have currants and we have last year's cranberries and fresh blueberries.
Blueberries that come from an undisclosed location north of Anchorage.
And I won't tell you where the blueberries came from.
Well, Chef Amy is happy to share recipes, her favorite berry patches north of Anchorage.
Yes.
Our top secret.
The trick is to get that nice and whipped up, and your hand is your best tool on this.
It does take a lot of love and energy to make akutaq.
There you go. It's lovely.
Very luscious.
I really like the low bush cranberries too. That adds a little pop. It almost marries the sourness of the sourdock.
A bouquet of flavors straight from the wild, and a reminder of how important food is.
Food is medicine.
To the healing process.
Being able to go in and seeing that taste of home, that calming that comfort factor when you're in a hospital and you don't feel well.
The hospital tries to work fish and reindeer meat into the menus and wild foods when they're available. And akutaq is one of those treats patients appreciate to top off a traditional native meal.
Thank you.
Oh, you've got the reindeer rice and gravy too.
Yes.
About 60% of the meals cooked in the hospital kitchen are made with traditional ingredients that bring not just the taste of home, but health and healing.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
If you want the recipe for Chef Amy's akutaq, well, get out your pen and paper. We'll have it for you at the end of our show. Up next, though, we're not done with the courtyard at the Alaska Native Medical Center just yet.
You can use it as an insect repellent and just kind of rub it on your skin.
What plant can you find in this garden that will keep the mosquitoes away? The answer when we come back. In many Alaska Native cultures, you'll hear elders talk about how all things have a spirit, and that includes plants, which were used for medicine. So think of it as the pharmacy outside your door.
Little baby berries are coming up.
Long before there were physicians and pharmacies, Alaskans combed hillsides like this one in search of medicine. And there's lots to be found all over Alaska. Each region has plants as unique as the landscape. But you don't have to travel far to learn about some of the important ones.
This is what we call our birch forest.
Each bed in this courtyard represents a different part of the state.
It's really prolific in the area that I'm from.
But the plants in this patch are special to Dana Deal, who grew up in the forests of interior Alaska, with elders who had a close relationship with the plants around them.
The ones that are most familiar to me are the jaihluk, which is Yupik for wormwood, or people call it stinkweed. I don't really like to call it stinkweed because I think it smells really wonderful, actually. So when you rub it, you're really getting the properties to release, and so you actually can smell it on your hands when you do that.
It doesn't stink.
My mom used to prevent colds with all my siblings and I, and she used it in the steam bath as well to promote respiratory health. So this one I think is really special. Some people even call it native medicine because it's so powerful. You have to be careful with it because it has a lot of medicinal properties.
Properties prized by practitioners of ancient Chinese medicine for their ability to cleanse the body.
I use it for tea, just drying the leaves and then using it to promote overall wellness, but also if I feel like a cold coming on, I'll sip the tea.
Birch trees were also used to help boost immunity.
People will drink the birch water to prevent colds and things like that.
How do you get the water from the birch?
It's similar to how you tap a tree for sap.
Trees that are so much a part of everyday life, we hardly give them notice.
This garden here is our bog garden, and so we've got some wild chives. There's beech lovage here.
Lovage has anti-inflammatory properties.
It's a green that grows in kind of wet, rocky areas, so you do see it a lot in the area of like the Kenai Peninsula.
Lovage is a cousin of parsley, but tastes like celery and is often used in soups. Over here, you'll find some Labrador tea. You just have a tiny little sprig of it.
Yeah, we're just testing things out to see what will grow in this space because they're all new to the environment.
The tea grows on the tundra and has an aromatic flavor.
So Labrador tea is another plant that is really familiar to our native people because we use it for not only tea, but some people will use it for spiritual practices.
In general, you'll find a reverence for plants in Alaska Native culture. It's said that before traditional healers would so much pick a leaf, they would ask the plant's permission, even those that are commonplace.
Yarrow, which is really prolific in Alaska, you'll see it in almost every region of the state. That one I really like too.
The reason why?
You can use it as an insect repellent and just kind of rub it on your skin. You can go like this and see if that helps. But it's also really good for cuts. It'll help stop bleeding if you have cuts. This is a true tundra blueberry plant.
These plants, whatever their role, are here mainly to offer comfort to those who are far away from home.
Just seeing things like rhubarb helps people feel more comfortable in the space.
A space that reminds us that to heal is both a physical and spiritual process, and plants are a part of both.
It helps people feel more connected to their home.
Ahead, the proper use of traditional medicine. We'll get advice from Dr. Allison Kelleher and Dr. Gary Ferguson, how they incorporate wild plants into their medical practice. Since the advent of modern science, nature's wisdom has kind of taken a back seat. But two doctors join us now who believe Western and traditional medicine can work in tandem together. Dr. Allison Kelleher, a family physician, and Dr. Gary Ferguson, a naturopath, and both are involved heavily in the emerging field of integrative medicine. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first, can you each give us a little bit of your background and how you set foot on this journey?
Sure, Rhonda. So I started in my childhood learning about the value of natural medicine in and around the Nome area. My family's originally from Nolato and we're Koyukon Athabascan or Dana. I have healing in my ancestry, and when people had back pain at around the age of 4, I started walking on backs and realized the value of natural medicine for preventing and treating illnesses from that rural Alaskan perspective, and felt that becoming a physician would help to validate those valuable processes. And so I've studied with healers for decades, Alaska Native, Native American, Native Hawaiian, and other healers to bring integrative and holistic medicine to our people.
So Gary, you've been on a similar journey to Allison in some ways.
Right, so I'm from a different part of the state. We're Unangan or Aleut I'm from the Shumagan Island community of Sandpoint, and I grew up with a deep fascination and respect for our healing plants and also just the healing power of nature, being out in nature. And that has led me on a kind of a circuitous path through seeing the power of emergency medicine and being a volunteer EMT, and then realizing that there's so much we can do to prevent disease by eating healthy, by healthy lifestyles, and by using nature's wisdom through our plants and traditional foods as medicine.
So let's start off with a couple of plants that we saw in Alaska Native Medical Center's Healing Garden. There's the yarrow over there with the blossoms and the chifluk, stinkweed. But Gary, you have another word you'd rather use for that.
Well, I was just, chifluk, stinkweed, or Artemisia species, which there are a variety of Artemisia that grow in Alaska and across the planet, actually. So I like to say Artemisia, and it's actually
prettier.
It doesn't smell bad, actually. It's not stinky.
Maybe it meant in the traditional language that it had an odor, a strong smell, but somehow stinkweed got attached to it. So what do you think about the Healing Garden and some of the plants that come from there?
Well, it gives people such a wonderful hands-on access to our medicines and foods, which are so important for us to have a relationship with, so we can help to heal ourselves, but also be in relationship with our planet, and so help to be aware of how our behaviors are influencing the health of the environment. There's so many reasons that having access to a healing garden is helpful for teaching, but also for the health of all of us.
Well, Gary, you helped design that garden.
Right, and it was a way of respecting all of the healing plants and traditions from across the state. And so I know they've had a difficult time growing some of our more northern plants because of the South Central rich environment. Of course, they look a little different with all of this sunshine and heat that we have here in South Central. But it's a way of honoring all the healing traditions. And I really love the pharmacy outside of your doors as a way of saying that, nature has incredible medicines, and many of our medicines today, the pharmaceuticals, the pills we take, are built upon natural analogs with rich traditions connected to our culture.
So is that what you mean by integrative medicine, mixing science and tradition?
Absolutely. So integrative medicine takes the science of natural medicines and allows us to use treatments that are lower risk with a good potential for healing. So, for example, we could use something like this yarrow to treat things like cold symptoms or aches or pains, or the same with the chithluk, that we could use that even to prevent disease. So sometimes we'll use these teas on a daily basis to prevent illness. So integrative medicine uses science to help us utilize supplements, botanicals, and other natural things such as healthy diet and lifestyle to promote health.
I have a feeling that our viewers are never going to see a walk in the woods quite the same, but you've got some fireweed out there, and that's all over the place. Can you talk about why you brought that sprig of fireweed?
So I brought fireweed because we're in fire season right now, and it's especially poignant if after the fires are done, fireweed comes in and helps heal the earth and prepare it for the next round of trees and all of the fertile vegetation. And in fireweed, as it heals the earth, it also is a wonderful healer for our bodies as well, from our skin, helping the skin heal from cuts and bruises and infection, to also helping heal the stomach as a tea. Our gut mucosa, it helps to heal the stomach. So it's a wonderful healer, and it's a very gentle plant as well.
So you just kind of collect the leaves and steep them in hot water?
Yeah, and traditionally, in fact, today in Russia, this is still a tea you can buy. It's a wonderful tasting tea. Some people prefer it over black or green tea.
So while we're on the subject of teas, you made a batch of Tundra tea for us, Allison. It's aromatic and just lovely, and maybe we could talk about that.
Absolutely. Labrador tea or Tundra tea is used a lot in Western Alaska and other parts of Alaska as a tonic, a tea that you drink daily to prevent illness and promote health. So it's good for cold and flu season, and also has all those disease-fighting antioxidants, and plus it's delicious. It's very aromatic and wonderful. It always reminds me of the tundra when I smell it.
And there's no taste quite like it. I can't quite say that it's minty, just sort of aromatic, maybe. Yeah. Now, you brought berries, too.
Absolutely. So in my culture from middle Yukon area, we use plants that are close to the ground as powerful healing plants. So even though blueberries are a delicious food, the plant also has a wonderful ability to treat all kinds of conditions, prevent and treat cardiovascular disease, other vessel problems such as blindness or diabetic retinopathy, so eye problems from diabetes, as well as treating diabetes in general, lowering blood sugar. So the plant has a lot of healing properties.
And we've got some more berries here. What are those dark, tiny berries?
So I'll jump in because this is one of my favorite berries. I grew up picking the moss berries, and as a kid, you had to fill up the coffee can before you could start eating any of the moss berries, and so I got really good at picking them with my hand. And I think it's really important for those of us who harvest these amazing berries to pick them by the hand rather than some of these metal containers that can destroy the tundra. So that's really kind of a safety warning. But this is a really beautiful, high in antioxidants plant that is rich, is kind of a little bit bitter. It has a lot of healing properties, from being great for antioxidants similar to blueberries, or it also helps to heal the urinary tract similar to cranberries. It's actually more potent than cranberries for helping heal urinary tract infections.
Well, a lot of people freeze their berries in great big Ziploc bags. Does that hurt their potency?
Well, actually, research has shown that with Empetrum nigrum, the blackberry, mossberry, it actually improves some of those phytonutrients and some of those healing abilities. That actually brings those out.
So what are these little red berries?
These are rose hips, and these are wonderful to dry or have in tea because they're high in vitamin C. You just have to be a little cautious because they do have seeds that are a little bit pokey. But these are just as effective in small studies as things like ibuprofen, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories for arthritis. So I find them really beneficial to put in capsules and to share with loved ones.
So how about just taking a handful and pouring hot water over them to make a tea? Will that work as well?
Absolutely, yes, either fresh or dried. And these are from the freezer, actually.
So what about this little sprig here?
So this is juniper berry, and I was taught that a juniper berry a day keeps the doctor away. So it's helpful to have high nutrient foods in our diet, and so juniper berries have lots of micronutrients and antioxidants to help promote health.
And we might kind of get a shot of this sort of powder here, powdered stuff. What is that?
So this is Chugga, which is really popular and can be purchased locally or also harvested. And so I was taught to harvest only part of the fruiting body of Chugga. But Chugga is used as a tonic also to promote health, but specifically is also used as a medicine for anti-cancer. And there are really promising studies that show Chugga can be used in conjunction with chemotherapy in a safe way that benefits the outcome of folks who are suffering from cancer with treatment.
Just a quick word here. What about just cautions? Because if somebody, say, doesn't take the Western doctor's advice and maybe harms himself.
I believe it's very important to partner with professionals in general for health concerns, and so that is a big part of the reason that I became a physician myself, believing that that knowledge is a human right. And so I believe that it's important for individuals with illnesses to seek out trained healthcare providers who have the perspective that that makes them feel comfortable to be in relationship with.
All right, well, I want to thank you both very much, Dr. Allison Kelleher and Dr. Gary Ferguson. Thanks for sharing some of your knowledge with us. Well, also, we don't want you to forget that akutaq recipe that we promised you. Ready? The main ingredients: 6 cups of berries, 1/2 cup of seal oil, 1/2 cup of Crisco, and 1 cup of sugar. Now, if you want to add in the sourdough, Chef Amy says to blanch it, chill it with ice, drain the water. Then you mix the fat and the sugar together, add the berries and sourdough later. Yum. It's good, trust me. Well, finally, every violin has a story, and some of those stories will pull at your heartstrings, like this one in Southeast Alaska. Bud Larson made this fiddle and recently came all the way from Minnesota to Metlakatla to gift it to his half-sister, Laurie Christiansen. Laurie grew up in Shagaluk, an Athabascan community in interior Alaska, and always wondered why she had blue eyes and light skin and her sisters didn't. Well, she didn't find out that Bud was her brother until 1994, when her half-sister Elaine sought her out to tell her about Bud and her sister Yvonne, and that they shared a Norwegian father who taught school in Shagaluk. Well, at about that time, Bud, well known in Minnesota for his hand-decorated violins, promised to make one for Laurie, who today teaches school in Metlakatla. Well, a promise is a promise, and years later, Bud kept his word. The violin was decorated with Athabascan-style forget-me-nots and a bear's head carved on the scroll. The back of the violin has an eagle design by Jack Hudson, a Simpson artist, and that's because Laurie has been adopted by Metlakatla's Eagle Clan. The community of Metlakatla welcomed the violin with a potluck and a concert in which local drummers joined in. We want to thank Amy Foote for this footage and photos, and we leave you now with one of those songs performed in the Longhouse. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.